how did you personally learn, come to learn those different languages?
Okay, so I'll just share my story. So I grew up speaking Hawaiian. That's my first language. My dad only speaks Hawaiian to this day. And growing up, I went to Hawaiian immersion school, so everything was done in Hawaiian. But I also learned English at the same time, and English is everywhere. So you're gonna learn English regardless of what people say. That was always the downfall of Hawaiian, that people thought, oh, Hawaiian immersion schools, they're thinking, oh, you're not gonna be super good at English. But I host a podcast in English. And I think we did Hooked on Phonics at one point. And I learned a lot from reading the subtitles in video games, like the role-playing games, like Pokemon and like Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts. So I learned a lot of English through that. And then when I was in college, people would always tell me like, oh, wow, you can learn languages so easily because you speak 2 languages. Oh, that's so crazy. But I would always tell them, and I don't know, it was maybe just me taking it personally. It's like when I feel like now that I'm reflecting, it's like when I hear people say, oh, you're so lucky. I'm like, I'm not lucky. I worked hard for this. So to me, that was them saying, wow, you're so lucky. You speak 2 languages. I'm like, I'm not I'm gonna learn Spanish. I'm gonna learn Spanish so I could prove that I can learn a language that I don't know, because how I would explain it is me speaking Hawaiian is like anyone speaking English in the world we live in, because as a first language, I don't remember a time where I didn't speak Hawaiian. Mm-hmm. So do you remember a time where you didn't speak English?
Nope.
It just always, so that's how Hawaiian is for me. So I learned Hawaiian and English simultaneously. So to me, I felt like I never learned it. I just always spoke it. And in Hawaiian immersion school, you do learn like certain things and grammar or whatever, but I didn't pay attention to that stuff. Same way, like growing up speaking English, you don't really know like past progressive, imperative, and all that. I didn't learn all that stuff until I learned Spanish, because you're learning from scratch.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to learn another language, and I always thought Spanish was cool. So I took Spanish classes at instead of just getting my credit, my language credit in college for Hawaiian, testing out of it. I really wanted to challenge myself, and I thought it'd be cool to be trilingual. So I took Spanish classes and I really loved it. Then I studied abroad in Spain, fell in love with the language, fell in love with the culture, everything. And then I studied in Argentina as well, finished my Spanish certificate. And that's how I learned Spanish. And I think the number one thing for learning a language, I guess the most ideal way is to immerse yourself, because I was in Spain learning, I was in Argentina learning, and I just had a genuine interest in actually learning the language. Because if you're just taking it to fulfill a credit, you're not going to learn. Well, that's with anything. That's just learning in general. If you have a genuine interest in learning something, then you're going to learn it. You're going to, turn your phone into Spanish like I did, or you're going to listen to music in that certain language, or you're going to find people that speak that language, and you're going to surround yourself with them so you can speak it. And a lot of it has to do with confidence. Some people are afraid to speak it. And I still go through this because I'm not confident in my Spanish now, because I have no one to speak it. If you don't use it, you lose it. So anytime I meet somebody that speaks Spanish, I want to speak with them, but then I get nervous and shy because I'm like, oh, my Spanish isn't good. I don't want to talk to them and embarrass myself. So I get it. I have empathy for people who are learning Hawaiian and they don't want to speak it around people who are fluent in Hawaiian. So I understand, but you just got to get past that somehow. And you're not going to learn a language. You can learn a language, but if you want to speak it, you're not going to be able to speak it confidently if you don't do it. You literally have to do it. Makahana ka'ike, in doing you learn. So that's my advice. And then, I went to Madagascar and we had to take language classes, and we lived with a family. So another immersion experience. And, when you live in the middle of nowhere and nobody speaks English, it's like a flight or fight, Yeah. You have to speak it, or you can't bargain and get food at the market, or you can't communicate with everybody and build community. So to me, it was learning Malagasy was learning out of survival. And I love languages. I love learning it. I love breaking it down. I love the etymology of it. I love being able to connect with people in their own language. And I think learning a language opens your mind. It broadens your perspective on things, because I think Kalehua was saying about you learn Hawaiian for the journey of it, not so that you could speak it necessarily, but you start to think differently because learning a language not only, I guess expand your mind, you're using different parts of your mind, whatever, but you're also just looking at things differently all the time because you don't want to directly translate things. So you always have to be almost creative in a sense where you're trying to explain things. And also, if you don't know a language, you're trying to find ways to communicate and convey your thoughts, desires, and all of that. So it really just makes you a better person and human being able to learn languages and communicate with others. And to me, why I was confident in starting the podcast, I was thinking if I could have full conversations in Spanish, full conversations in Malagasy, Hawaiian, English, I could have a full 2-hour long podcast in English, So that's kind of the tips for learning languages. And I hope to learn Japanese and maybe another language one day.
Well, they ain't gonna accept you after that racist accent you did.
What? That's just me doing anime.
Yeah.
Nezuko.
Yeah. Welcome to Aloha.
No, that's you teasing actual people. I'm just mimicking the people.
No. Yeah. Kamaka is racist. You heard it here first.
Itadori-kun.
Yeah. Exposure, straight up.
Yeah. Immersion. Immerse yourself.
Straight up.
As best as you can. I know it's hard, especially if you have a family and kids. But
yeah. Call back to that point.
Immerse yourself. That's what I said.
Yeah, that's very true. That's
and
why
do things. Like I changed my phone's been in Spanish since 2014.
Which is exposure.
Yeah. I don't speak it, but at least I see the words.
Yeah. The best way environment, it all comes back to stimulus. Like just doing your structuring your environment to work towards whatever, goal you're trying to achieve. Yeah. I always wondered why schools always prioritized, and I guess it's because it goes back to reading and writing, like literacy, which I don't understand why. I mean, it might be my ignorance, why schools focus on that so much, especially when learning languages, because from what we're saying, exposure, it's all about conversational language. It's not about structure. Like, we do not speak correct English.
Yeah.
At all. We learned it as a baby, we learned it from hearing it.
Well, we speak in idioms, in colloquial terms, like all these things. We don't speak in proper grammar. Pidgin, whatever. Yeah. Some people do, but.
So I wonder why it's still taught like that when it comes to learning a new language. Obviously, it makes sense if it's already, like if you're taking language arts and your first language is English, because then now you're just expanding on your own. But if it's brand new, I would assume that, man, the whole class should just be you like talking story with each other, I think.
Yeah.